And again, welcome to the Leading Edge monthly webinar series from CCMA. My name is Mike St. Pierre, and I'm your host today, filling in for Deacon Frank, who is on assignment. Let us pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, Lord our God, we thank you and praise you for the blessing of what we hope was a good past academic year. Please bless us in our conversation today. Bless Mark as he helps us to reflect on the past year, what went well, what didn't hit the mark. Help us to be humble enough to change and let information inform our actions and our decisions. Bless those students who perhaps finish the year on a down note, those who may be alone, those who feel far from you, far from the church. Please use us through these summer months in whatever way possible to reach them, if it's only through our prayers, but perhaps through other ways as well. We're thankful, and it's for them that we do everything that we do. We pray for a good webinar today, and we make this prayer in Jesus' name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay.
Amen.
Well, let's get started with a couple of announcements. And again, welcome everyone. We're thrilled to have you today. And my name is Mike St. Pierre. A couple of announcements. First of all, we want to ask for your prayers. There are over 45 brand new campus ministers who will be attending an event next week called Launch. This is a brand new event from CCMA, and next week we'll be providing these newer campus ministers with a ministry boot camp, if you will, of evangelization, networking, and prayer. So please keep them in your prayers. We would really appreciate it. It's taking place at Seton University here in New Jersey. Second, I want to mention a brand new CCMA member benefit. It's called Lift. And Lift is designed to help you navigate your next job search, whether you're new to the field of campus ministry or you're a seasoned veteran. Lift can help you. Through resume templates, coaching, and our online job bank, Lift will take the edge off of your next job search and really lift your career prospects. Best of all, it's free when you join CCMA. And if you'd like some more information, just visit ccmanet.org/lift. With that said, I'd like to now introduce our facilitator and our special guest, somebody who I've gotten to know a little bit over the last couple of years, and I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and that's Mark Knox. Mark got his undergraduate degree from Texas A&M University and his master's in theological studies from the University of Dallas. He spent 11 years in youth ministry, 3 years working in the Diocese of Tyler, and he's now the director of campus ministry at St. Mary's Catholic Center at Texas A&M University. So Mark, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I guess I'm taking over here. So I want to start with howdy. That's what we say here at Texas A&M. And just wanted to kind of go through a little bit. Please treat it, giggle. Yeah, thank you very much. Wanted to talk a little bit just briefly about St. Mary's, what we have, just to give you some context on what we deal with. We get a lot of phone calls from you guys and from people all over the country. We just want to know kind of how we operate and what we do and whatnot. So I thought I'd kind of hit on a few statistics and all that kind of stuff of just what we do here at St. Mary's. So some of the stuff, I'm sure that everything that I'm going to share today is going to be transferable. It's not going to be dependent on having a big school, small scale school, or anything like that. So it shouldn't really matter. But just to give you an idea of where we're at, A&M has around 68,000 undergrad students here enrolled. And so we take that number, Texas is mostly around 23% Catholic. So we estimate there's somewhere around 17,000 Catholics at Texas A&M and Blinn. We see on our roster, we have names on our roster of like people who have actually registered for our parish. We have around 6,000 names. Of that, there are 2,800 students that are involved in at least one ministry outside of just going to Mass on Sunday. Let's see, our normal Mass Sunday attendance is around 4,000. This year, our average daily Mass is a pretty big number. Our daily Mass is anywhere between 250 and 350. This year, we saw some of our daily Masses up to 400 or so, which was a big boost this year, which it's big compared to last year. Normally, towards the end of the year, we're seeing about 150, and this year we held strong at around 300. even in April and May, which is kind of crazy. We have 6 scheduled opportunities for confessions. So 6 days of confessions with 3 priests every day. And our priests normally walk out after an hour and they have to turn students away. So there are a lot of students going to confession. Adoration at any moment, if you walk in there, you know, during the 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1:30, whatever, there's normally about 15 to 20 students that are in there adoring the Blessed Sacrament. What else here? We have around 20 to 25 that are in the discernment process here at St. Mary's. We have 61 seminarians, 174 priests. We had 146 participants in RCIA this year, which includes 25 unbaptized, 38 converts, 21 receiving First Communion and confirmation, and 62 just receiving confirmation. So yeah, that's what we look like at a nutshell. It's big. There's about 40 organizations that we have, everything from youth ministry focused stuff to prayer opportunities, men's groups, women's groups. We have on our staff, this might be helpful to know, we have 5 campus ministers, 3 religious sisters. We have 6 interns and 5 focused missionaries. So those are our numbers in a nutshell of what we look like here. It's pretty big and kind of hard to keep track of. So this is maybe why I got asked to share this 3-step process on how to evaluate your ministry. Right now is a great time. I don't know if your campus space looks like mine, but normally on any given moment, we have about 50 to 100 students just hanging out in our student center. Right now there's like 3. So it's quiet around here. It's really nice. It gives us an opportunity to take a pulse and see how we're doing. And so we like to run numbers. I know there's some people that really struggle with using numbers to base in their ministry, but for us, it's vital. I don't know any other way to keep track and be able to actually trace what you look like. Not only that, but pastors care about numbers, bishops care about numbers, and most importantly, donors care about numbers. So even if you don't like numbers because you're all about quality over quantity, I still feel that numbers are still really important and can kind of shape what you're looking at. So our model, what we kind of go for, I think it's important that we keep our model, our mission statement, our vision statement kind of at the forefront of everything that we do. And that kind of guides our process of ministry. And so this is kind of what ours looks like. We have a 4-step model of connect, grow, serve, and share. And as you see right in the middle is worship. And everything points to worship. Everything we do has to point to worship. So when we're looking and evaluating our ministry, we look at this process and see how it works and how we move it through. And particularly, is worship at the center, and what does that look like, and how do you measure that? So yeah, I opted out of the PowerPoint and said I got these little flyers. So here's how we measure it. There's probably lots of ways. If we're going to open up here in a little bit to let you share kind of some other ways that maybe you measure your ministry, but I'm going to give my 3-step process on how we do it. The first step is to conduct a census. We actually run a census of all of our ministries throughout a year to try to get an idea of what our numbers actually look like. So what that looks like for us is in the month of October. It's a perfect month that we feel that it works for us because, you know, in August, September, everyone jumps in. They're like, yeah, let's do lots of stuff. And then by October, they've kind of either fizzled out or they've decided that they didn't want to do this and they want to do this, or, you know, whatever their schedule looks like by October, we kind of feel it settles down. So we run a census in October. What that looks like for us is with every ministry, we ask them that every time they meet in the month of October, they actually collect name, phone number, and email. And so there may be we have St. Mary's Youth Retreat Team, and they put together their list every time they meet. There's a sign-in. They eventually put every single one of those names in an Excel, and they send it off to us. We also take every retreat that we do throughout that year as well, not just the meetings that happen, but every retreat that happens over the course of the year. So Aggie Awakening may be in March, but we'll put that into our census numbers. We'll collect all the name, phone number, and email, put that into an Excel as well. Anyone who's in discipleship through Focus, Bible studies, if they go to Adoration Hour, we'll have a sign-in or Adoration Hour. Pretty much everything that we can collect a name, phone number, email for, we do for the month of October. And then, so that's all like data collecting of names. We also, I'm sure most parishes do this, but you collect your data for how many people are attending Sunday Mass and daily Mass. We also have our priests during the month of October. We have them put tick marks for how many confessions they hear. We don't have names or anything like that. That'd be scandalous, but we do have them put tick marks just so we have an idea for numbers, like how many people during the month of October on average are going to confession, or we even count the people that didn't get to go through confession because they were sitting outside waiting. So we take all those numbers, we put them into a database, and Johnny, on the first round of databases, Johnny might be on there 5 or 6 times if he's in 5 or 6 different ministry opportunities. We eventually condense them all so that we know, like, Johnny does this, Sally did this, and this, and Bill did this and this, whatever it is, we put them in a spreadsheet. That's how we know that we served at least 2,800 students throughout all of our ministries over the course of the year. We have at least 2,800 students involved in one ministry outside of going to Mass. So that gives us an idea of our immediate where we're at. That's our step one, is to conduct the census. We're currently doing ours every other year, which we're probably going to move to every year because we tried to take a year off, and we didn't quite get the numbers that is consistent to know exactly where everyone is going. So step one is to conduct a census, right? Step 2 is to track it over time. We track both individuals. So for example, we have a freshman retreat that we have before school starts, where we have around 400 students go through this Connect retreat. And through the year, by October, we take a look. Okay, Jimmy was in Connect. Did Jimmy find a spot throughout the year? Where is Jimmy as a freshman now? We also have from 2 years ago, the census that we did from 2 years ago. Okay, did Sally find a spot? Is she still involved? She went on Connect 2 years ago. Where is she at now? Is she involved in anything outside of Mass? So we can kind of keep track. We also look at drop rates. So particularly for big retreats like Aggie Awakening, our Connect retreat, our freshman organization, like there's a lot of these groups and organizations that we want to track. Okay, they went on silent retreat. Are they more involved in adoration? Are they more involved in doing all these other things? And we kind of can see where students are going, and that's been really helpful for us. Let's see. All right. So looking here. Oh, another way you can track is with photos. It's kind of a weird way to doing it, but we occasionally do a consistent photo time. So during the month of October at like 3 o'clock, we'll take a picture of our student center, and then every Monday at 3 o'clock we'll take a picture of our student center, and we'll kind of get an idea, how that looks. Is there more students? Are there less students? You could do it over the course of a year, that kind of thing. Sherry, you asked what kind of database we use. We just use Excel. It's not pretty, but it's very functional and it's free. So that's all we use for tracking our database. I could pull it up if when we go to maybe a break or something. I'll pull it up. That way we can switch over, and maybe I can do a screenshot of what that looks like for us. Yeah. Oh, so when you're also tracking your numbers, okay, this is where the quality, it's in the whole of this thing, worship. Track the things that count. the things that count for us are sacraments. You know, worship is the heart of everything that we do. So we want to be very diligent to make sure we are tracking all of our numbers for masses, for confessions, for adoration, all the sacramental, Eucharistic worship type things. When those numbers are increasing, we know that we are healthier than when those numbers are decreasing. So even if, let's say, our retreat attendance was decreasing, if more people are experiencing the sacraments, then that's valuable to us, and it kind of gives us an idea of some of that stuff. So step 3, this is not really continuing that. Okay, there we go. All right. So really the third thing that I would recommend for a step 3 would be do a review with your staff. Every semester, we have a semester review at the end of semester, and we get together for an entire day, if not 2 days, and do almost like a retreat where we pull out everything that we did. We talk about how kickoff went, how this change has been better or not. We talk about numbers. We talk about what we can do to fix it. We have strategic days that we set up afterwards to break down this stuff and to come up with solutions. It's a very collaborative effort in any changes that we make, and we get a really good idea from that, as well as our pastoral council. We do a review with them once a year as well to kind of talk through some of the things that they saw as improvements or challenges, and that gives us a really good picture for how we did. And we also run surveys at the end of every retreat and things like that, so that gives us an idea as well. But other than that, that's the 3-step process. I did want to highlight one more thing before we kind of go into question and answer and having you share some of your insight to this and how you measure your stuff. How many students in the collaboration? We have like one from every organization, every major organization. So we have about 7 to 10 major organizations that are about 100 to 150 people strong, and we have representation from each of those, and have them give feedback on things that they're seeing, trends, graces. We let them share graces. That's a really cool thing. We just do a whole series on sharing of graces. Where did you see God work in your ministry this year, and how how fruitful do you think this year went? And we ask them specific questions about different stuff we did. So the last thing I wanted to highlight is the whole quality versus quantity. I know sometimes this gets a little bit hairy. In fact, one of my staff members, we were talking today about mission trips. We reduced our staff in the area of mission work. There was kind of 1.5 person, and now we're just moving it to 1, and we're kind of reallocating things. And with only 1 person, it's hard to do 4 mission trips. We normally do about 4 to 5 mission trips every year, and this year we did that, but one of our staff members has left our staff, and so we're going to be having 1 person, and it's going to be very difficult for them to do all the mission trips that they did before. So, we are talking about the whole sacrificing quality versus quantity, and what I really feel convicted of is that if you're in a situation where quality and quantity conflict, like they challenge each other, then you might want to look at your system that you're operating out of. So what I mean by that is that, yes, there can be a point to where the quality is really good, and if you start adding too many people, then it takes away from the quality. I get that, but I also believe that if that's the actual challenge, that the system that you're running out of may be not the best system, or there may be a better system that you could do. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So this is something that we reviewed 2 years ago. We've made some adjustments, and we're seeing a tremendous change in a lot of our numbers and quality fruit that's being produced. So the example that I have is this. We run a Connect retreat, It's in August, right before students start. And the way we previously did it, this is kind of a model diagram of what we did. It was a large group event. Everyone was in one big room. And then we had tables. Each one of these represents a table. And the red and blue represents the gender of, it was about 6 or so women and about 3 to 4 guys. And then there was a mom and a dad on each table. And so we ran it like that. And we saw about a 40% drop from all the students that attended. We had about 400 students that attended Connect Retreat 2 years ago. And we had about a 40% drop where we didn't see those students in October. And so that was a little bit of a challenge to us. I didn't like that. So we began to look at, okay, what model, okay, what system can we do to accommodate more people? And because, I mean, there's roughly around 2,000 freshmen, Aggie Catholic freshmen that come in every year. There should be 4, but you know, if you're going to go on the 50% ratio that you're generally going to get, there's about 2,000 that we actually have here on site that we see at Mass and that kind of thing. So I'd love to have 2,000 attend this, not 400. So we began to look at the model. How can we accommodate more people, and how can we change the ratio so we don't lose as many students? So this is what we did. There are times where everyone is together in a large group, girls and guys mix and everything else. And then we have breakouts into households. We call these households, and we have 3 tables of girls and of guys, and 2 of guys. Sorry, so 3 tables of girls, 2 tables of guys. The reason we have the off ratio is because for whatever reason, we always have more girls participate than guys. So now in this situation, we can have better leaders because we don't have to put the girl and the guy on every table. So we can be more selective and have better quality group leaders. All the leaders that run this whole thing are all students. None of this is adult led. It's all student led, the whole thing. So then we also have them in a situation where they can be co-ed, but when they have group discussion, they are single gender. And what we found in making this change this year is that guys need guys. Girls need girls, yes, they do, but there's normally more girls around anyway, so they can find their friend groups. But guys really struggle if there's only like 2 or 3 of them together, 4 of them together. If they don't like the other guys in their group, they peace out. They're done. So we found it important to really do the specific gender and let them be in a group of 8 guys to have a much better better chance for them to make more friends. And in the group of around 30, which is around each household is around 30 students, that gives them more friends to make. Now, the reason I use this as an example is because both of these systems worked, they were good, but this one over here, it had some flaws. We were struggling to find the quantity of quality leaders in it. So when we changed our system, it allowed us to accommodate more students, have larger ratios, but also the quality of student, they're more formed, they are more prepared, and it's been a big change for us, big change for the students, but it's been really healthy. And so we've seen this year, we ran our numbers this year to see kind of where people were going, and we only had about a 15% to 20% drop off instead of 40%. Also, I believe that our mass attendance, our daily mass attendance, and some of those other things have been increased because of this change. I don't have fact to prove that, but that's my theory. So yeah, let's take some questions.
Great, thanks, Mark. Awesome, lots to think about. Folks, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you'd prefer to write your question in the chat, please feel free to do that as well.
Hi, Mark. Sherry Riley from Iowa State. So when you say, I get that the households are a group of small groups. That's a cool idea, and I like it. But then to me, that means you need 5 leaders per household instead of just 2 per whatever you did before, a guy and a girl. Or or are your small groups just, they're not led? Help me understand that.
Sure. So in this situation,
Yeah, you needed 2 per table, right?
2 per table. In this one, we need 1 per table.
1
We
per
only
table.
1 per table. And then, so that's 5 liters on this versus 10 in this model. And then in this one, we did have household leaders. We had 2 liters per household to kind of bring the whole thing together. But even then, we had I think I ran the numbers here. So for 24 tables in the old model, we needed 48 liters, and we could accommodate 114 students. In the new model, we had, with the same ratio, we only needed 35 liters compared to 48, and we could accommodate 175 students compared to 114 students. And the ratio does go down, but this model, the little household model that we did, it gave, instead of trying to get to know either your table or everyone, this one lets you get to know your table or your household, and getting to know a household of around 30 is way easier than trying to get to know everybody. It's way less intimidating, and it also helped. We found that introverts, we did have an issue with day 2 returning. A lot of the introverts, man, they ripped us on interviews, and they weren't returning the second day because they were like, this is overwhelming. It was way too overwhelming for the students to kind of have quiet space, where this kind of broke it up and allowed them to have a little bit more space.
Mark, question related to that. Was there any pushback from your student leaders or your adult team when you discerned that you needed to go to a different model?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Texas A&M is known for tradition. So anything you do twice becomes your tradition and something you can't change. We did have pushback, but one of the cool things is that when we did it the next year, they saw it and they loved it. So we kind of proved them wrong, even though there was pushback. You know, the other thing, we're actually making some even more significant changes. But the beautiful thing about campus ministry is, because it is a revolving door and your students are gone after 4 years, if you make slow changes over time, you can eventually get whatever you want. And, you know, they're never going to know what happened the previous year. They're only going to see the small changes from year to year. But overall, we saw, everyone saw the benefit of our changes. We also brought this, so this model was at St. Mary's. We took this one to campus, to the Texas A&M campus, and everyone found that to be just incredible. So that was another big change we made. It was a good change.
Cool, thanks. Folks, who else has a question, either in the chat or you can feel free to unmute yourself for Mark.
This is Janet from Briarcliff. My question is, what is the purpose of the mom and dad in your groups? And do you have that in the household groups too?
Sure, yeah. So this is one of those traditions that started with Aggie Awakening, actually. So they would put moms and dads on every table in this model. This is what our Aggie Awakening still looks like. We will probably eventually be making some adjustments to that as well. But it just gave a girl and a guy so that you could have a co-ed group. One thing that I find, and this is kind of not about evaluation, but I think it's important to share anyway, is that every time we do something co-ed, or if we ask people, would you prefer co-ed or gender specific, they would, you know, unanimously say they want co-ed. But when you put them in a situation where it is single gender, I find that they walk out of that saying that was way better than co-ed. We also run home groups, which are like groups that run out of houses, and they say the same thing. They start out saying, we want co-ed, but then once they've done a group that is single gender, they always walk out saying and finding more fruit from that than the co-ed groups. There's just some things you just don't want to say, or you don't feel comfortable sharing with or being vulnerable to the opposite gender. So yeah, the purpose of that model before was to have co-ed small groups. But I personally, I prefer single gender small groups. I think they're more fruitful, and the discussion that can be had usually goes deeper quicker. There's more vulnerability, and ratio wise, you can keep one woman to a group of 7, and it works better that way for us anyway.
Mark, how about for other small group opportunities not on retreat? Do you typically keep them, again, all guys in one group, all gals in another group? Does that kind of carry through to other parts of ministry?
It is. We were very heavily co-ed in everything that we did, but we're slowly moving more and more towards single gender, and with the opportunity to intermix. So I just got back from Colorado last week. I did an adventure trip. I took 35 students, a priest, and we went to Colorado to do like rafting, rock climbing, backpacking, all that kind of stuff. And we were in single gender groups, and we started out. I had all my 6 guys in my truck with me, 5 guys in my truck with me, and we had unbelievable conversation on the way up. And then after a while, we split up and let them do the co-ed thing. But every night when we processed, it was single gender. We did affirmations the last night where it was single gender. We had a guys campfire and a girls campfire, and the guys, it was perfect because they were able to like be guys and talk the way guys talk, and I mean appropriately, of course, and share the way guys shared, about funny things and whatever else, while the girls were down at the campfire probably crying and like having this great beautiful moment of girls sharing with girls, and it worked really well. It was incredible, and all of our reviews, I did a survey, and all of our surveys said that they loved the guy girl component. If I would have asked them at the very beginning, if they would prefer to be co-ed, they probably would have said co-ed. But doing the single gender, it worked really well, and there was really good fruit from that.
Awesome, thanks. Folks, who else has a question? I see a lot of back and forth regarding either Google Forms or Engage, just different ways to track student involvement. Feel free to, again, ask Mark Knox a question. Mark's the director at A&M, St. Mary's Catholic Center, or again, feel free to put your question or comment in the chat. Mark, here's a question for you. There's for better or worse, and maybe I'll ask a question and Sherry's asking, could you summarize the points again? For better or worse, there's a lot of turnover in campus ministry, and you stepped into this role, and A&M is not a small position and not a small ministry. I wonder if you could take us behind the curtain and share, what was it like in particular in your first year as you looked at things with a pair of outside fresh eyes, and I'm sure you saw things right away that you said, I want to change this, I want to change that. And I'm sure some of those things you changed, and I'm sure at other times you had to use discretion and maybe bite your tongue. Could you share with our attendees here, what was that first year like?
First year was a lot of learning what we do and how we do it and the inside operations and everything. One of the guiding pieces that helped us through everything was our core team. So our staff is made up of, it's a very large staff, but our pastor is very collaborative, and we have, all of our department heads, we get together and collaborate, and we put together a vision document. And that vision document has driven everything that we've done to make sure that we're in line and making sure that we're kind of all together on the same page. And that's been a huge part to, keeping everything healthy and in line with the pastor's vision and making sure that everything is getting implemented. So that vision document, it really had us evaluate stuff. I know that in a smaller staff situation, it's really easy to keep doing the same things and to do it the same way. And it's vitally important to review what you're doing and being open to making changes. We did that. We reviewed We sat on for about 4 days straight, and we just outlined all the pieces that are important to us. We talked about this document and how people move from one point to the next. How do we get people to share? How do we keep worship at the center? And we came up with a great document that helped us do that. We reevaluated our staff and our jobs and our job descriptions, and because of that, we did lose two of our campus ministers, and we're in the process of bringing everyone on this summer. That stuff happens, that turnover happens, and it does hurt to have turnover, but it's also better to have the right people and in the right seats too. I think that's also a vital piece to making sure that your ministry is healthy. And so really there's a lot of that just has to happen. It's uncomfortable and it's challenging, but in the end, if it really does make the ministry better and have healthier people on your staff and ideas that can change, because sometimes things do need to change, and we had to make a lot of changes. We also wanted to make some changes, but couldn't get everybody on board, and so we've put some things to the side and just said, you know what, not yet. Or we agreed in consensus, this is a change that we need to make, but it's too big to make now. So what are the pieces in between that we can do to work towards that? So yeah, it's been a lot of that. I've been here for a solid 2 years and hope to be here for the next 15 years. But yeah. I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. No, that's fair. Let's see. Here's a question from Kim. I minister on a large campus who has a reputation of being more secular overall. How do you suggest reaching out to pull in Catholics who are not engaged? We have an increasing number of religious nuns.
Okay. Just to speak on that, it's really tempting to be in the church. You know, you read Joy of the Gospel and it just hammers. Don't just be content with being here. It's the low fruit, the low hanging fruit is easy to pick, but we do have to be people that are going out. The ways that we do that here, that's what I can speak to. Focus does a phenomenal job of doing that. They're trained and they're experienced in walking up to strangers and having conversations. That's what they do best, and bringing them in and empowering others to take roles in ministry. Teaching discipleship and modeling discipleship, you know, I think the learning curve of that is very difficult. I think that's where a lot of challenges in campus ministry come, is because you desire to have this chain of like someone and a group of people they minister to, and each one of them has people that they minister to. Like, that's what you want to get towards. We have that here. We have chains that are probably 10 people deep in, you know, Focus and other groups where there's one-on-ones happening everywhere, students just discipling other students. But how do you get there? It's tough. That curve to get there is very difficult. There's three to four things that we do here that we found success in. One is Focus. They're really good at it. Two, our religious sisters. We have Sisters of the Interior Life. They're phenomenal at doing that. They go to campus and they sit around and just visit with students. We have two other ministries that do this on campus as well, and I want to highlight them. This is something that anybody could take and apply and train on teaching their students on how to do this. But we have an organization called Prayer Bench, and what they do is we've trained our students on how to pray generally, just a general prayer for people, over people. And so they go sit on a bench in campus and they hold up a sign that says free prayers, and students walk up and they introduce themselves and they just pray for them. That's it. And that gives them an opportunity, you know, to also have a conversation, you know. So they pray for them, and then they typically have a conversation about who they are, where they're from, whatnot. And if they find out they're Catholic, they invite them to something. You got to have outreach events that are really good at reaching the people who are not connected. They're not going to want to go to a prayer service or to something like that, but they might be willing to go play ultimate frisbee. You know, so we have in our model, that's what a connect is. It's all about the things that are low committal, that are fun, that anybody will want to come to. Having those regularly is a great thing to be able to invite people to. So the other ministry that we have is we have a new one that we just started this year. We're training people on how to do it toward the end of last year, and it's going to launch this coming year, is Emmaus. So it's basically just like Prayer Bench, but instead of people coming to them, they're going out to people. They pray as a group of two. They'll sit together, they'll pray for God to place someone in their midst, and then they'll just walk. They'll walk across campus, and hopefully someone will engage in some way, a smile. They'll walk past someone and say howdy, and then they'll just get into a conversation. It's very, very natural and easy to do. And then from there, they can, discern whether that's someone they should invite to something, or just to say, hey, it was great to meet you. Have a great day. And while I was talking, I thought of the fourth thing that we're doing that really reaches the outside students, the people on the fringes. This has been our biggest addition in the past 2 years, and we've seen a tremendous amount of fruit from it. We call it home groups. They were called discipleship groups, but because Focus does discipleship groups, it gets really confusing, so we changed it to home groups. It's basically, we trained a group of students to run a Bible study / just a group, just run a group in their house. And so you can look on our website, aggiecatholic.org, and you can look up home groups, and on join a group, there's a map. If you can picture a map of your city and then dots all around your campus, and each one of those dots represents a group that is meeting, and that's what we've done. We promote it for, hey, if you're looking for a small group of any kind, go online, sign up, and we'll pair you with a leader. People can pick based on the day and time, and then the group leaders decide if they want to be just girls, just guys, co-ed, just freshmen, only engineers. They decide what kind of group they want to be, and then they promote it in that join a home group section, and people just sign up for their group. They can also find people and say, hey, Johnny, I'd love for you to be in my home group this semester. And we built that in hopes that we would get the students on the fringes, and it's 100% worked. This past year, we had 150 people sign up in the fall, and then we had about a 50% turnover, and we had about 130 sign up for the spring. And so overall, we had about 300 or so students go through home groups. And when we did like a survey type thing to find out who these people were, almost all of them were students on the fringe who they missed Connect Retreat their freshman year. They didn't get involved in John 15, our freshman organization. They kind of disappeared. Now they're juniors. They want to get plugged in, and they enter, and they're like, whoa, everybody knows each other. Everyone's at daily mass, and it's like, this is big, and I can't make any friends. Where do I go? Home groups. They find a spot in home groups, and it's a small community of people that are mostly focused on just making friends, and they also do some spiritual stuff too. But that's been huge in helping to connect students that are on the fringes and helping them to find a group. I think the number one reason that people don't go to mass here, the students that are kind of, they call themselves Catholic, but they're not attending at all, would be because they came, they never found a group of Catholics, and so they just didn't go anymore. They don't mind being Catholic. They probably believe very much in the Catholic faith. They love Jesus and all those things too, but they're not going to church. And the reason is because they, at least here, most of them just didn't find a group of friends to connect with. So if you can find them a group of friends, 10 or so friends that they can connect with, they will likely start coming back to church. At least that's in theory. Those are numbers that we're going to have to run next year to see how those panned out.
Thanks, Mark. That's great. Let me give you some kind of rapid fire questions here. So we'll put you on the hot seat because we have a lot of questions and probably don't have time for all of them. But Alex said, could you please walk us through what tracking actually looks like? As I heard you discuss it earlier, it was, I see John on this list, and oh, he's on that list too. And then, we start seeing him in a lot of places. So there's a question there. What does tracking actually look like? And then another participant asked, how does A&M ministry fit into the rest of the university, and what kind of relationship have you guys built with A&M over the years?
Okay. So hold on real quick. I'm going to pull up. So with the I'll just keep talking here. With the university, we don't do a whole lot with the university. We do have a couple of organizations that, there it is. Okay. We do quite a thing. We do some things on campus, but not a whole lot. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Okay, can you do a screen share? Can you swap me to screen share?
Sure can.
Okay, share. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna have to make it. Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. You can see. Okay, so that. So this is what we started with. You can see these are some of our major organizations here, and so here's service, and we have. Let me hide that here. Okay, so these are all students that attended one of these service things. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's just one. That's how service came across. And then we have Ag Awakening. So these are all the students that attended Ag Awakening. So we have a list of, looks like, so that's staff and students. So we had 306 that attended Aggie Awakening 110. So then what we did is we took all that and we put them into a master list. So Isabella did Aggie Awakening 110, Jesus is Lord, KTB, Pietro Fitness, Connect, and Liturgy. She did that either in October or over the course of that particular year. So I've got all these students here, and we can kind of see generally, several of them are involved in 2, 3, 4 things. We also got down to, these are all Sarah. Oh, that's cool. This person I took on an adventure trip this past semester. So, but I know that they did Aggie Awakening 110. Now, how do we, I keep going down the list. These are all students that are involved in at least one thing. And then here's students that are involved in nothing, but they're just registered parishioners. So we just keep going, and we got our numbers to, keep going. But that together, Brian here, I took him on adventure trip this past year too, but I could track him from year to year. So for example, the big thing, Connect right here. You see all those? Those are all people that went on Connect in some capacity. I've got another file that has them by class order and everything else. I'm not going to take the time to pull that out, but to track that, it would be, I'd look at this person, Granger, he was on Connect, and I could look at him next year. Was he in anything else? Or did he just do Connect? My guess is that some of these people, like this person, Jones, Claire, that's a complicated name. Kent, Emily Kent, there you go. Okay, I know Emily. She went on Connect 2 years ago. So now to track her and see where she's at, I could do a sort here to see how many people were in Connect. And then the following year, I could look up those same names and see the percentage of how many people got involved the following year or didn't get involved the following year. So that's how I would track everything. I would just put it all in a file here and get an idea for how many students are involved and engaged in ministry. So
Great.
Does that answer the question, you think?
I think so, yeah. Here's a question from Kim. Do students sign into each event, or no, you're just kind of relying on your adult leaders as they go over sign in? Is it sign in sheets, or are they kind of capturing participant names, or?
When we do our official census in October, yes, they sign in. And for a lot of them, they already do a sign in anyway. But in October, we do a sign in for as many things as we possibly can, for the exception of sacraments. So yeah, even adoration. Like if you pop into adoration, we ask you to sign in during the month of October so that we get an idea of who's attending.
Sure. Okay. Here's a question from Michael. How do you go about training all of these students for all of these groups? And how do these students relate to other organizational leaders?
Okay, so we do a fall leadership retreat at the very beginning of the semester. We just go through basic leadership principles. We talk about discipleship and what that looks like. We talk about accompaniment and hospitality. We used to do policy, but we're now doing more of a video for that instead, because who really wants to listen to an hour or two of policy? So that's how we do some base training, but also the way it works here is if you're in an organization, there's a leadership structure of, president, vice president, whatever. And we have an expectation that those who are in charge will also mentor the people who are coming up the following year. So usually, looking at my calendar, check this out, y'all. This is pretty cool. This is my calendar. It's pretty intense. I keep everything on there, and that's how I keep track of everything that's going on. But usually about March, spring breakish, that's when we have pass downs. We have presidents and their leadership core. They discern the new leaders for the following year. Then there's a call day, which is the end of March. The last week of March, we usually do call day. And so we go through our first round of calling the leaders to invite them to be president, to be vice president, to be secretary, whatever. And so if they accept, then they accept. If they don't, then we have a second call day. That's about 3 days later, and hopefully all the spots are filled. And then sometimes we do an equip retreat at the end of the semester for those brand new leaders, because they're all excited to be the president. But for the most part, there's a pass down process. So the president will type up everything in their organization that needs to be passed down, that needs to be known, passwords, all that kind of stuff, emails and the new schedule and everything else. And then they work with the advisor. That's what our campus ministers do, is they advise the leadership of each organization, and they sit down with the new leaders and do the pass down and talk about, what do you want to accomplish next year? They go through goals and they go through everything. That's all in April. And so by the time they leave for the semester, they have an idea of what they want to accomplish for the next year. And they have an idea for what needs to be done. And some of it just can't be done until you're in the position to have to figure it out. So
on the job. Yeah, no, that's good. Mark, say another word about these call days. I mean, are we talking pulpit announcements? Are we talking one-on-ones? How does that happen?
No, that's like a president will, like let's say there's president, vice president, secretary. The president will then call the future president, the future secretary, the future vice president on the phone and say, hey, we've discerned that, we'd like for you to be this position. Would you like to do that? And they would say yes or no. We also, in that process though, in their discernment, they'll put their names on a list of their top, their second, their third, their fourth choice for that position. We'll put it all together, and all the campus ministers will look at all the names and make sure that Jimmy isn't going to be president of 3 organizations. So we talk through that and make sure, and if there's a problem, then we as a staff will say, I think Jimmy would be better here than there. So why don't we ask this organization to bump them down to number 3 instead of number 1, and then, so yeah, that's how it works. Making sure that there's no overlap or too much work for one person, and then they just get a phone call and invited into it. They usually have a day or two to decide if they need it. So
Nice.
yeah,
that's great. Okay, last 2 questions. How do you combine your lists into one list? And do you have an org chart for each campus minister with the organizations they're in charge of doing pass downs with?
Say that second question again.
Do you have an org chart for each campus minister with any of the student groups or organizations that they're in charge of related to that pass down process?
Yes, we do. Okay, so with the list, to combine it, we just take these people and we copy and paste into one database. Like I said, it's not pretty. We put all the names on there. This list first looked like, I don't know, like 10,000 names or something, because, you know, this Lindsay Boss would have been in there once for The Rock, once for Aggie Awakening, once for Focus, and once for Connect, and once for Liturgy. So then we just spent the man hours, the person hours to sort by first name, last name. That's why the phone number and email comes in handy, because if you sort by that, then you're going to have a much better chance of having them right next to each other in the sort. And then you just bring them over so that they're right next to each other like this. So Lindsay Boss now has all these things beside her name instead of Lindsay Boss, Lindsay Boss, Lindsay Boss, Lindsay Boss, Lindsay Boss, you know. So it's not pretty, but that's what we do.
Makes sense.
And then you asked about our org chart. We do have an org chart. I'd have to find it in our documents, and I don't know if it's worth the time, but it basically has on there, campus minister, this person has these 7 things that they're responsible for. This campus minister has these things, and this person has these things. So yeah, it's not a pretty org chart, but it does list out the responsibilities of each campus minister.
Awesome. Wow. Well, I'm sure we could all raise our hand and say we'd like to visit A&M and St. Mary's Catholic Center. And
hey, on that, I do want to share that we have campus ministers that come visit us all the time. We probably have, I'd say, 15 to 20 visits a year. People, you know, have come in from Lubbock and from we've had people flying from Colorado and all over the place. So if you want to come and visit us and spend a couple days, we roll out the carpet for you. We'll help find a place to stay. We'll feed you when you're here. We'll walk you across campus. We'll set you up meetings with our development office, with all of our campus ministers, with our interns, with students. So that's something we do frequently. So feel free, if you want that opportunity, just let us know. We'll take care of you.
Awesome. Mark Knox, thank you very, very much for being our guest. And to all of our attendees, if this was your first CCMA webinar this month, welcome. It's really great to have you. We know from our own data, our own spreadsheets, that most attendees are participating, watching, and viewing 2 to 3, even sometimes 4 webinars in the course of a year. The good news is, whether it's your first one or your 4th one, we're going to put this video on YouTube, and that should be up within about 48 hours or so. So you can see Mark's face over and over and over again through YouTube. So, so thank you all so much. Let's be praying for each other during the summer months. And again, please be praying for those campus ministers attending next week's CCMA event called Launch. Peace be with you, and thanks so much again.